This is Kathy from Gadgets Top 321, and in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at Noodler's Black. I'll be testing it in a variety of pens and nib sizes ranging from a Pilot Extra Fine to a 1.5 stub nib. Now normally, really dark black inks and dark blue inks I prefer to use in really fine nibs, but this Noodler's Black was unusual. I actually preferred it in my Kaweco Perkeo with a medium nib. As I do the writing samples, I'll talk about why that is, but I'm going to begin with my Pilot 78G with an extra fine nib. This is Tomoe River paper, and this extra fine nib is very nice. I'm not feeling any scratchiness. There is the typical feedback you would expect from an extra fine nib, but very usable. In a little planner like this where you have really tight grids, that would work nicely. Next, I have a Sailor Pro Gear Slim with a fine nib. Now, I'm putting down a bolder line with this fine nib, but the feedback is, I would say, the same, possibly even more feedback than that Pilot Extra Fine. To me, it's not unpleasant. It's not scratchy or anything. So I'm going to say that it's nice, but there is noticeable feedback if that's something that you care for or do not care for. Next, I'm getting into the medium nibs, and these are the nibs that I preferred with this black ink. This is a Platinum 3776 with a medium nib. Very nice. It's got some feedback, but not as much as the Pro Gear Slim, simply because it's got more surface area on the tipping. So I'm not going to mention the feedback. It's not as significant of a factor as it was with the Pro Gear Slim. Now, you notice on these smears, the smear kind of reminds me of Graphon Faber-Castell Stone Gray. It's got a little bit of a brown tone to it. There's some warmth to this ink, and I'm starting to see, it's not even noticeable if you weren't looking for it. In the Platinum 3776 medium, you're starting to see a little bit of shading. This black ink has a little warmth to it. Next, I've got my Kaweco Perkeo all black with a medium nib. Oops. And this is very smooth. I'm not seeing as much shading on the Tomoe. Well, no, I take that back. As it dries, just little bits of shading, and this was very smooth. Often the 3776 medium and the Perkeo medium have roughly the same amount of feedback, but in this case, the Perkeo was much smoother. And to me, the reason I don't like to use black inks in medium nibs, it's especially for like an entire page of journaling. Now, for just jotting down little notes, it's fine. But for an entire page of journaling, it's just too much black ink. But this just seems to be easier on my eyes. I could see myself journaling an entire page with that Kaweco Perkeo and the Noodler's Black. Next, I've got a Pilot Metropolitan with a cursive medium nib. Again, this combination is very smooth. And I'm noticing as this dries, it looks like, I don't know if this will come across on the camera, but see how this nib wasn't quite as wet as the Perkeo? I'm seeing more of the lighter shades in this combination. So I like it too. Now my Nemesign Singularity with the 0.6 stub is a little bit wetter. We'll see. Normally it's a little bit wetter, so I think we're going to see more straight black here. Well, it's writing a little dry for me. These are, yeah, that's looking a little dry. This is not freshly inked up, so I'm just not going to write anything on this one for now. We'll compare it to the other writing samples. And I've noticed that with the Nemesign 0.6 stub and my next pen, the Jinhao 1.5 stub nib. This could be just because I was dipping them for these writing samples, but they tend to dry out a little quicker. The others have stayed fresh longer. Well, this one started right up. Okay. Yeah, on that ink smear there, it looks like this is like a dark brown ink more than just a straight black ink. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other writing samples while this dries real good. Now, I did a water resistance test earlier, and compared to Sailor Gentle Black, Aurora Black, this was Diamine Onyx Black, and I've got Noodler's X Feather down here. Noodler's Black performed really well. I did these writing samples, waited about 3 minutes, completely submerged it in water for another 3 or 4 minutes, and that's what we ended up with. And this is Marmon Namosini paper. Next, in my ARC notebook, the extra fine was kind of scratchy. Again, just like on the Tomoe River paper, the Sailor Pro Gear Slim was nice, but there was a notable amount of feedback. On this more absorbent paper, the Pilot Metropolitan was my favorite. The other mediums were nice and they were smooth and pleasant to write with, but you see just the slightest hints of feathering, and you know that feeling when you write and you can feel the ink spreading. The Pilot Metropolitan, with it being a slightly dry writing stub nib, it spreads the ink out for you instead of the ink spreading by feathering a little bit. So I really liked the Metropolitan on this ARC notebook paper. in on Rhodia paper. The extra fine was scratchy, same results. The Pro Gear Slim was nice with some feedback. My medium nibs were my favorite. The Pilot Metropolitan, I didn't put a heart beside it. I put hearts beside the ones that I really like. The Pilot Metropolitan, let's see, just looked a little bit, there was too much lighter parts to it. It's a little bit hard to see in my lighting right now, but I really liked the Kaweco Perkeo, and the Metropolitan, or the Platinum 3776 was nice. And my Nemesign, if you just wanted straight black, it was writing wet enough here that it was just really smooth and just a stark black. On my 20-pound copy paper, let's see, I was surprised by, it bled through a little bit, but this is really poor quality paper. Look at my Noodler's black compared to some of the others. Now, those are that's an Organic Studio and Noodler's Kung De Cheng that just bled pretty bad. And what's this one down here? Lamy Amazonite. I think it did better than that. The Pro Gear Slim was starting to feel a little dry. Now, the Platinum 3776, to my taste, was a little too wet, and it wanted to spread a little bit. In this one, the Pilot Metropolitan was my favorite because, again, it didn't want to feather. That stub nib spreads the ink out before it has a chance to feather and spread on its own. And in my Leuchtturm, now here you can see what I'm talking about. It's showing up a little bit better. You see the lighter sections where there's some shading. It's not just a stark black. If you look up here to Aurora, where that's just a super dark saturated black ink, Noodler's black comes across as having a little brown in it. Okay. And our Tomoe River paper, I'm still seeing some wet spots. Let me see. Yeah, we're dealing with some dry time here that I haven't seen, I don't think, in any of the ink tests that I've done so far. You're dealing with dry time on Tomoe River paper. Everything felt nice. I enjoyed it. So I think I do prefer, since I'm dealing with, if you're writing with a really wet nib, you're going to have to worry about your dry time. That makes me like the Kaweco Perkeo even more. And I liked the Pilot Metropolitan. Two pens that spread the ink out a little bit, and you see a little bit of shading. You can see there on the A, it's showing up really well. All right, so a black ink that I actually prefer in a medium nib. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.